Wayne Gatt, thank you for your time. Tell us why the Ring of Steel's a bad idea.
Well, it was called a Ring of Steel back then, but, you know, it's probably not the best description for it if you really think about it. It had problems all through it, littered right through it, to be quite honest. It was very, very resource intensive for police to manage. That's the first thing. The second thing was it was hardly a Ring of Steel. I mean, you know, for every number of cars that police checked, they had to wave through others. And, you know, whilst they stood in static positions on roadways, on many of other locations, they could see only a short distance away doglegs and other roads where other cars could go effectively unchecked, unimpeded. It's not a Ring of Steel in that regard, and that's why we say it's not necessarily efficient or effective.
You've proposed an alternative likened to sort of breath testing on steroids. How would that work?
Well, it's effectively still having an opportunity for police to enforce, if indeed that's what the government says that is required. I mean, that still remains a question for the Victorian state government. But if they make the call that enforcement is required because of some form of separation between, you know, different parts of the state, then indeed having a more mobile approach where, you know, like we do with drug and alcohol testing, we task particular units to patrol densely and in a high visibility way different areas and check those drivers. We can use ANPR, automatic number plate technology, to identify the drivers that are most at risk or most need checking. That's a far more productive, far more effective way. And let's also consider this, Peter, that, you know, 99.9% of the people that were checked during that 4-month lockdown were lawfully going about their business in Victoria. In fact, many of them were essential workers, shopkeepers, nurses, ambulance people, doctors, just trying to get to work, trying to help the rest of us in the community, and somewhat delayed by the approach that we adopted. You know, we're not blaming anybody for that approach. We're just saying, you know, this is lockdown 4.0 in Victoria. You know, we're not exactly proud of that, but, you know, one of the things we do get a chance to do is to improve. If we have to introduce this again, then let's do it better. Let's do it in the most efficient and effective way we possibly can.
Are you aware of discussions taking place now between the government and Victoria Police about differentiating between metropolitan Melbourne and country Victoria?
Look, I'm not privy to those discussions, but I do know that Victoria Police is, you know, always preparing for options, always trying to think a couple of steps ahead about, well, what if government introduces this policy, then how might we respond to that demand or that response? I think that's smart and that's appropriate for Victoria Police to do that. I suppose what we're saying is let's get ahead of that too and put options on the table that work for the community but work for Victoria. We want the least obtrusive approach too, and I think that's important too. You know, in this lockdown more than ever, I think what we want the community to feel is as secure as possible, and we want to normalise as much as possible any enforcement activities for them. You know, the Ring of Steel, as it was known, it was very prominent. It was very ineffective. It was very resource hungry, and it certainly, I don't think, instilled a degree of great confidence within the community either.
Well, I want to go now, if I can, to the drug injecting room issue here in the Melbourne CBD. Apparently today we're told tens of millions of dollars have been spent for a building in Flinders Street that, you know, the reports are, the rumours are that it'll be used for a injecting room. That's not been confirmed. There's a report still from Ken Lay. It's with the government but yet to be released. You've described the consultations or the discussions about this new second injecting room, as I said, for the city of Melbourne, in the centre of Melbourne. You say it's all been dealt underhandedly. Should it go ahead? Should there be a second injecting room in Flinders Street?
Look, we're on the record and we say no. If they can't get it right in Richmond, then they shouldn't be thinking about a second site, particularly in the CBD of Melbourne. Look, we would have our doubts as to whether or not it could ever effectively work in the CBD of Melbourne, but why would you expand a trial to another location when quite clearly on the evidence you're not getting it right in the Richmond area? When in the Richmond area the community is saying to you, this is damaging us, this is impacting the amenity of the area, this is hurting traders, this is making us feel more unsafe in our communities. Why would you then, until you get that right, why would you then go and replicate that in a capital city of Australia?
You, the Police Association, Wayne, you guys were not in favour of North Richmond from the get-go. You said it would have a heavy crime toll on the local community. That's precisely what's happened. You've been proven right. What are members telling you about the situation on the ground?
Oh, look, we've always been open-minded with these, health responses. But, look, being open-minded is just that. It's about, if it works, it works. But if it's got issues, being honest and courageous enough to call them out. Our members are telling us that they've seen increases in crime. Our members have told us consistently that they've seen a reduction in public amenity, and that the community that they speak with feel more insecure, feel concerned. And indeed, as the union representing them, we get that not only from our members, but we get it directly from the community as well, who tell us that directly. It's important to listen to community on these issues. Otherwise, consultation becomes a sham.
Well, you're one of the most powerful union leaders in the state. Are they listening to you, Wayne Gatt?
I'm sorry, what was that, Peter?
I said you're one of the most powerful union leaders in the state. Are they listening to you?
Well, I hope they're listening to us, but more importantly, I hope they're listening to the people that they're elected to represent. That's the Victorian community. They're the people that matter in this, not the Police Association. Look, at the end of the day, if the government forges on, if it chooses to ignore, our advice and the advice of the community in Melbourne and the traders and tourists and residents, if it chooses to bat on regardless, it should explain to the community why it's doing that. And look, we say, just tell them. If you're not going to really listen to them, just say, we're not going to listen to you, we're just going to go ahead and do it. Show them, at least give them that amount of respect. I think the Victorian community, certainly the people of Melbourne, deserve that.